Rising or taking off from the ashes of failed Italian airline Alitalia, ITA Airways is hoping to chart its own course and avoid the financial peril that its predecessor faced. Having begun operations in mid-October 2021, the airline was given a fairly fresh start, with all the challenges that come with it. Rebuilding its fleet and re-establishing routes has been no simple task, but its leadership is determined to craft an airline that Italians can be proud of. The competition is fierce, and the post-pandemic operating environment has been full of challenges, but is the airline doing a good job so far? To answer that, let's take a look at the ITA Airways fleet in 2022. Starting where Alitalia left off, ITA Airways began its operations on October 15, 2021, with the following fleet of 56 aircraft: 18 A319-100s, 30 A320-200s, and 7 A330-200s. There were two key aircraft types that didn't make the jump over to ITA. These were Airbus A321-200s and Boeing 777-200ERs. Now, some 10 months later, the ITA Airways fleet is a little larger than when it began, having taken delivery of a few more aircraft. At the time of making this video, these additions are as follows: 2 A320-200s, 1 A330-200, and 5 A350-900s. Remaining on the theme of new but actually old, the airline's first 3 A350s were actually built in 2018 and 2019 and weren't originally intended for the Italian carrier. Indeed, the original customers of these jets were Hainan Airlines, Hong Kong Airlines, and Tianjin Airlines. These carriers, for various reasons, didn't follow through with their orders, turning the jets into whitetail aircraft. The transfer of ex-Alitalia jets to ITA Airways means that the airline, without its newer A350s, has a somewhat older fleet of aircraft, ranging between 10 and 22 years. The airline's much newer A350-900s, which are between 6 months and 3 years of age, drastically bring down the overall average fleet age. Of course, with many more new Airbus aircraft on the way, the average fleet age will continue to fall. While SkyTeam's Air France and KLM have a shared loyalty program by the name of Flying Blue, ITA Airways is taking the phrase in its most literal sense and flying blue-coloured aircraft. Indeed, joining the likes of KLM and Korean Air, the carrier has decided on an all-blue livery for the standard colour scheme of its fleet. This deep metallic shade of blue is a significant departure from the tricolour red-white-green of Alitalia. Likely the key reason for this drastic change is the fact that the European Union wanted to limit the amount of economic continuity between Alitalia and ITA Airways. While the new airline is essentially a replacement and a revival of Alitalia, the new entity was to have a different name and very few traces of the airline it was created to replace. Despite this, some aircraft transferred from Alitalia to ITA have been delayed in getting their new paint jobs. As a result, A320s and A330s operated by ITA have still been flying in Alitalia livery. Along with the closing question of this video, we'd also love to know what you think of this bold blue livery, and if you think it's better than the Alitalia colour scheme. Aside from the official standard ITA livery, the airline has a few specials in the fleet. In advance of the airline's official unveiling, one special livery was placed on the Airbus A320 registered Echo India Bravo. This jet was one of ITA Airways' first aircraft and, to mark the occasion of the carrier's launch, was painted all white with words "Born in 2021" plastered across the side. The second aircraft with a special livery is an Airbus A350 registered Echo India Foxtrot Delta. This aircraft has a special Born to be Sustainable livery, which features the green, white and red from the Italian national flag, along with a sustainability message marking the airline's commitment to becoming one of Europe's greenest airlines by 2025. Moving on, while Italy's new full-service flag carrier certainly makes the news for being the new Alitalia, with its striking blue livery, the carrier's aircraft have also been in the news for all the wrong reasons. On this topic, two relatively recent incidents come to mind. The first incident took place on May 1st when an ITA Airways Airbus A330-200 was operating flight AZ609 from New York to Rome. The aircraft was cruising over France when it became unresponsive to air traffic control for over 10 minutes. This lack of response to air traffic control sparked a terror alert, with fighter jets then being scrambled to check on the status of the aircraft. However, the real reason for the lack of communication was that both pilots were asleep. This alarming incident occurred because one pilot was on a period of controlled rest, leaving responsibilities to the other pilot. However, this pilot too fell asleep, failing to respond to communications for 10 minutes. The unnamed pilot denied falling asleep and blamed faulty communications instead. However, an investigation found inconsistencies in the pilot's version of events, while technicians tested the aircraft systems and found no faults. This led to the captain being dismissed from their job after the internal investigation. The second incident took place the following month on June 17th, with an ITA Airways A330 apparently clipping another jet while on the ground at New York's JFK airport. The aircraft, registered Echo India Echo Juliet Lima, taxied towards the runway for departure but struck an Air France Boeing 777-200 registered Foxtrot Golf Sierra Papa Quebec in the process. The crew of the ITA Airways A330 was completely oblivious to the collision and proceeded to take off. Meanwhile, the Air France jet urged ATC to keep the ITA aircraft on the ground. However, by the time the situation was fully understood by ATC, the A330 was already in the air and on its way across the Atlantic. ATC contacted the ITA Airways jet to inquire about the incident, but the crew denied any such collision. Either due to the extent of the damage or supply chain challenges, the Air France 777 spent over 3 weeks on the ground at JFK, finally resuming service on July 15th. It's arguably not a great start if an airline is facing these kinds of issues in its first year, but hopefully we won't hear about any more serious incidents in 2022. If we move on to the airline's future fleet, we can see that it has much to look forward to. Indeed, chaviation.com data notes that the airline is still expecting the following Airbus jets to join the fleet: 7 A220-100s, 16 A220-300s, 23 A320neos, 9 A321neos, 17 A330-900s, and 3 more A350-900s. With the carrier continuing to take new aircraft, these figures won't likely be accurate for too long. Of course, we'll examine what else the airline is expecting to operate in the coming months and years. Announced in September 2021, the airline emphasized that the significant Airbus order was placed to make its fleet and operations more efficient and more environmentally friendly. Firming up the order in December 2021, this is what the executive president of ITA Airways, Alfredo Altavilla, had to say. Today, the strategic partnership with Airbus takes an important step forward with the finalization of the order we announced last September. In addition to this agreement, possibilities of further collaboration have emerged, in particular regarding technological developments in the aviation sector and digitalization, where Airbus is the market leader. All this is part of the actions to achieve our environmental sustainability objectives. Efficiency and the ability to lower maintenance and fuel costs will be critical if the airline wants to remain competitive. Indeed, there's no shortage of airlines competing in the short and long-haul European market. Still in its first year of operations, ITA Airways comes into a market full of fierce competition. When it comes to short-haul services, the carrier will be going up against both well-established legacy carriers as well as European budget airlines such as Ryanair, Wizz Air and EasyJet. For long-haul operations, the airline will be competing with foreign airlines serving Italy. This includes fellow European carriers like Lufthansa, Air France and Iberia, connecting through their respective hubs in Frankfurt and Munich, Paris and Madrid. Additionally, overseas airlines in North and South America such as LATAM, Aerolíneas Argentinas and the big 3 US carriers will also be the competition that the carrier needs to consider. When it comes to US carriers, United Airlines alone serves both Rome and Naples, while American Airlines and Delta offer service to Rome from several US cities. There are a lot of headwinds faced by ITA Airways, even if we exclude incidents resulting from the actions of its own pilots. However, with a growing fleet of modern, efficient aircraft and potentially new ownership on the horizon, the airline might just have a chance at being more successful than its predecessor. Do you think ITA Airways and its fleet of new aircraft will have what it takes to survive and thrive in a competitive landscape? Let us know what you think by leaving a comment. Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles every week. If you're looking for the latest aviation news and insights, visit simpleflying.com.